Hello. If this is your first time joining me or your first time watching a live video or even coming across any of my content, my name is Ashton. I'm a Christian entrepreneur. I'm a purpose and identity coach. And I also help women write and tell their stories. And in today's live video, we're going to be talking about how to write and publish your book in 10 steps. I'm going to write it. How to write and publish your book in 10 simple steps. Hey, Rye. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to write and publish your book in 10 simple steps. So I wrote my first book I wrote my first book in October of 2017. I published it in May of 2018. I wrote my second book in October of 2018 and then published it in May of this year. So I guess I have a little bit of a pattern going on. But yeah, so that is what I've done. My first book was a devotional journal, and then my second book was an actual book, and it's called Pursuing Purpose. And that book is all about finding your purpose, walking in your purpose, and we'll talk a little bit more about that during this live video. So I don't want to be on here too long, so I'm going to go through the tips and then I will be off of here. So how to write and publish your book in 10 steps. So the first step for writing your book is brainstorming. So the first thing that you need to do is decide on a topic or an overarching theme for your book. So what are you even going to talk about in your book? So like I said, for my book, Pursuing Purpose, the overarching theme for the book is purpose, finding your purpose, walking in your purpose, how to navigate your purpose, things like that. But there were also other themes in the book, or also other subtopics that I talked about in the book. So I talked about forgiveness, I talked about faith, I talked about fear, I talked about knowing your identity, I talked about prayer, I talked about Bible study. So there was a lot of smaller themes that I talked about in the book, or smaller topics that I talked about in the book, but the overarching theme and the overarching topic for the book was purpose. So the first thing that you have to do is brainstorm, what do you want the overarching theme to be, and then what are other things or other topics that you're going to talk about in the book. The second thing that you want to brainstorm is what specific stories or experiences do you want to write about. And so in each chapter of my book, I tried to have a story or an experience that I could share to draw the reader in, or to make the reader relate to me. Instead of just giving them all information, I tried to also share stories in my life of where I had to learn how to forgive, or when I didn't know my identity, or when I was dealing with rejection or comparison. So I tried to put stories or experiences in the book that could make the story or the book more relatable to the reader. The other thing that you want to think about is, what expertise do you have? What can you teach somebody, especially if you're going to write a nonfiction book? What do you know a lot about, right? It might be, I know a lot about fashion, or I know a lot about business. I know a lot about puppies, whatever it might be. What expertise do you have? Write that down. And then along the same lines of that is, what is something that you're really good at that you can teach somebody else to do, because you can write a book around that as well. So the first step that you want to take when you're getting ready to write and publish your book is brainstorm what you are going to talk about. The second thing that you want to do is create a plan. So there is 3 parts of the plan that I talk about in the author's boot camp. And that's an outline, a writing schedule, and a writing plan. So an outline, hey girl. So an outline is the skeleton of your book, right? So when you're creating an outline, it's kind of like creating, just like briefly talking about what you're going to talk about in each chapter. So, for example, in my book, Pursuing Purpose, I knew that I wanted to talk about forgiveness. I knew that I wanted to talk about faith. I knew that I wanted to talk about Bible study. So I wrote all of those things out as their own separate chapter. And then next to them, I wrote a simple line of how that related to the overarching theme, right? So, step one of writing your book is brainstorming what the theme or the topic is going to be. And then, step two, when you create your outline, you want to make sure that each chapter at the end of it points back to that overarching theme. So, like I said, my book is about purpose, but in each chapter I talked about forgiveness, faith, whatever, but I made sure that each chapter pointed back to the overarching theme of purpose. And that's what you want to do when you write your outline. You want to make sure that each chapter that you have talks about a specific topic, and that topic relates back to the overarching theme of your book. So first you create an outline. Secondly, you create a writing schedule. And in your writing schedule, you want to talk about how many words you want to write. And so, for example, if you want to write a 50,000 word book and you want to write it in 30 days, you have to write around 1,600 words a day, right? So you might not want to write that much. You might want to write less, but you need to have a plan about, or a schedule about how many words you're going to write each day. And so a lot of people don't do this, and they just sit down to just write. But I found if you don't have a plan in place for how much you need to write in order to hit your goal, then you're going to be okay with writing maybe 200 words one day or 500 words the next day. And it'll be harder for you to get to your goal, and it'll take you longer for you to actually complete your book. So that's why I recommend creating a writing schedule. And then the writing schedule also helps you map out what days you can write. Because for a lot of us, if you're in college or you're working a 9 to 5, like you might not be able to write all day, every day. So what days can you dedicate to writing? And then the last thing that you want to do is create a writing plan. So a writing plan is different from like the schedule, because a writing plan tells you like when you're gonna, or the writing schedule tells you when you're gonna write, but the writing plan tells you like where are you gonna write at. So when I was writing my other Pursuing Purpose, I wrote it at my desk every single day. I didn't write it anywhere else but my desk. And I trained my mind because I knew when I sat down at this desk, I was going to be writing my book. So my mind automatically, the creative juices just started automatically flowing when I sat down, because I trained my mind to understand that when we sit down at this desk, it's time to write this book, right? So you want to sit down at the same place every day. That's a part of your writing plan. Another part of your writing plan is eliminating distractions. So, like I said, a lot of us might work, or we might have kids or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of distractions that keep us from writing our book. And so you have to write that in your plan. Like, okay, I know I put my kids to bed at 8 p.m. So I know that I need to write after that. So all of that would go into your writing plan. So the first thing that you want to do is brainstorm. What is your book going to be about? The second thing that you want to do is create a plan. And in your plan, you want to create an outline, a writing schedule, and then a writing plan. The third thing that you want to do to write your book is research. So what data, what statistics, etc. do you need to include in your book? So for example, for my book, Pursuing Purpose, I knew that I didn't want it to be based on my opinions, but I knew that I wanted it to be based on the Word of God. And so I had to look up a lot of scriptures. I had to go into prayer. I had to ask God, and I had to research, what does the Bible say about prayer? What does the Bible say about forgiveness? What does the Bible say about finding your purpose? What does the Bible say about our calling, right? So I had to look for that information, and I had to do all of that up front. If you are writing a book about starting a business, you might have to look up research on the amount of businesses that fail in the first year, or why social media is so important to marketing, or you just might have to look up different research so that whatever you are saying in your book is backed up by facts. So that's why research is really important. So after you research, the fourth thing that you want to do is start writing. And I always say that when you start writing, that should be the only thing that you focus on. So a lot of people will tell you different, but I always say that you should strictly focus on writing, and that is how I'm able to write my book so quickly, because I'm not focused on editing. I'm not focused on creating a website. I'm not focused on what the cover is going to look like. I'm not focused on any of that. When it's writing time, that's all I'm focused on. That gets all of my attention, and that's how I've been able to write both of my books in 30 days. So when you're writing your book, just focus on writing. I also recommend, depending on what platform you're using, whether it's like Microsoft Word or like Google Docs or even Scrivener, turning off the like spell check, because I know that has distracted me in the past. And like if I see like them red squigglies or them green squigglies, I automatically want to like go back and like, oh, let me fix this. Why doesn't this make sense? Why did they underline this? And try to make it make sense, when what I really should be focusing on is writing, especially when you have short periods of time. If you're super busy, you don't have a lot of time to write in the first place. So don't spend your writing time editing. Don't spend your writing time doing other things, right? So the fourth step is writing. And then the other thing is, this is one thing that stops a lot of people from writing a book. They don't feel like they're a good writer, right? But you don't have to be a good writer to write a book. You just need to be able to edit the book, right? Editing fixes any mistakes that you make while you're writing. So as long as you have a story, you can write a book, okay? As long as you have a testimony, as long as you have knowledge to share, you can write a book. And the editing comes after that. So the first step is brainstorming. The second step is creating a plan. The third step is research. The fourth step is writing. And then after you finish writing, after you hit your target word count, then you want to edit your book. So if you can afford to hire a professional editor, then I definitely recommend that you do that. And I'm going to say that for a lot of the things coming up. If you can afford to hire a professional, hire a professional. However, if you can't, I couldn't when I first wrote my first two books. So I have a lot of experience editing my books. So the first thing that I would recommend you do is choose 3 to 5 people who you can send several chapters or like the whole book to, and get their opinion or have them read through it and check like your grammar, your spelling, your sentence structure, and things like that. And then also checking to make sure that the story flows in the way that you want it to, that it actually is getting the message across that you want it to get across, and things like that. And when you choose the people that you want to send it to, make sure, for one, they're not yes men and they're not going to tell you like the book is, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, if it's not, right? So you want to make sure that you have people who are going to be honest with you about your book. And then also make sure that you're sending the book to people who are actually interested in that topic, right? So if I was writing a book about business, I probably wouldn't send that book to my mom to review it, because she doesn't really have any knowledge in that area. She wouldn't be able to fact check it and be like, no, this doesn't make sense. Or if I talked about fashion, I wouldn't send my book to somebody who isn't into that, because they're not going to really read it right in a way where it's like, oh yeah, this is good, or this is information that I'm looking to consume, right? So send that book to people, 3 to 5 people. And then lastly, edit your book in at least 3 different formats. So one, you can edit it in whatever you typed it in. So Microsoft Word, Google Docs, whatever. And then secondly, print out your book. So it's going to take a lot of paper. I put mine in a binder, but print out your book and read it out loud. We know when we read in our heads, our minds automatically correct whatever we're reading so that it makes sense. But when you read it out loud, you're able to double check that, and you notice mistakes that you might not have noticed if you read it in your head. So print it out and read it aloud. And then lastly, convert it into a PDF and read it on like iPhone books or like a Kindle app or something like that. So after we write, the 5th step is edit, and then the 6th step is to rewrite. So I know when I've edited my books, I've had to like chop a lot of stuff out that didn't make sense, or that didn't go back to the overarching theme or the overarching topic of my book that we talked about in step 1. So you definitely are going to probably have to rewrite some sections, if not a lot of sections in your book after editing, especially if you have like a professional editor and they do like deep copy editing on your book. So that is step 6, rewriting the book. And then step 7, we start getting into formatting. And so once again, if you can pay a professional to format your book, I definitely recommend that you do that. However, if you can't pay someone to format it, then you can download free templates. You can also watch like YouTube videos that talk about how to set the margins for your specific book size. I know people also do it on Fiverr, and they're pretty affordable. So that is the 7th step, formatting your book. And formatting your book is just basically like the font. It's talking about like the size of the font and the actual font, so that it's easy to read. It's also about the front and back matter. So the front matter being like your copyright page, your table of contents, and things like that, acknowledgments. And then the back matter being like about the author. If you want to preview another book, I did that in Pursuing Purpose. I put the first few pages of my next book at the end to like get interest going. What else can you put in the back matter? Just like stuff like that, just more information about who you are, what your business is, and stuff like that. So that's the other stuff that you want to do when you format the interior of your book, and that's step 7. And then step 8 is design. So formatting is for the interior, design is for the exterior, and design is like your cover, so your front and back cover. It'll include your blurb or the little excerpt about what your book is about. It'll also include your author bio. It'll include a picture of you. Once again, if you can get it professionally done, then definitely do that. However, if you can't, like I said, there are cheap options on Fiverr. Or you can find maybe a graphic designer who is just getting their foot in the door, and they might have cheaper prices, or you can do it yourself on like in like Adobe. You can do it in like Photoshop, InDesign, Canva. That's how I made mine. So the one thing that I don't want to stop anybody from writing their book, anybody from sharing their story, is cost, right? It literally cost me nothing to publish both of my books. Nothing, right? So even if you do not have the money to hire a professional, you can still get your story out. You can still get your book out, right? And so it's just gonna require extra time and energy on your part. But that's with anything, right? You can either pay time or you can pay money, right? And if you don't have the money, you're going to have to pay the time and learning how to format it and watching those YouTube videos and figuring out how you can actually do it on your own without paying a professional to do it. However, in the author bootcamp program that I'm getting ready to launch next week, I will walk you through all of these things so that you don't have to spend the time researching it, because I wrote my book in 30 days and I wrote it in October. I didn't publish my book until May because I spent all of that time. What is that? May is already 5 months plus November, December. So that 7 months, I was learning how to edit my book. I was learning how to format my book. I was trying to make a cover. That is where I spent most of my time. And so if you join the program, I'll be able to share all that information. I literally was sitting in Barnes & Noble, like reading books about publishing. Like that's how much I needed to know what I was doing because I didn't have the money, right? So I had to put in the time because I couldn't pay the money to have a professional do it. So the first step for writing your book is brainstorming. The second is planning. The third is researching. The fourth is writing. The fifth is editing. Then the sixth step is rewriting. The seventh step is formatting the interior. The eighth step is designing the exterior. And then the ninth step is going to be uploading. And so this is where you upload your completed manuscript in whatever publishing program you choose to use. So I always used Amazon KDP, which is also partnered with CreateSpace now. It used to be separate, but now they're partnered together. So that's what I use, but you can also use Lulu. I've used that to make like journals or Blurb as well. I've heard other people use to publish their books, but there are plenty of publishing platforms. I think Barnes & Noble even has its own platform. So it's really about you choosing the one that works the best for you, but I always recommend that you use Amazon KDP. So that is the ninth step, uploading your manuscript. And then the 10th step is actually launching your book. And that encompasses a bit more. So it talks about, launching is about like creating your website, creating your author platform, making sure your author page is together on Amazon. Launching is also about how you're going to price your book. Hey. So when it comes to pricing, you have to think about what your goal is, right? For a lot of people, your goal is to be a bestseller, an Amazon bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. And most people who are getting on that list have priced their book lower, but they can do that because they were traditionally published and they have a big company backing them and giving them that royalty up front, right? And so that's where you see like a lot of the big name people can price their book at like $9.99 or $4.99, $7.99, prices that are pretty much on the lower end. But when you see people who have self-published their book, typically their book is much higher. Typically it's like $15 or more, depending on the person. And that is because when you self-publish your book, a lot of times we're pricing for profit. And when you price for profit, you very rarely hit bestseller. So you really have to decide what is important to you. Is it important that you hit the bestsellers list, or is it important that you price for profit? For me, it was important that I price for profit. And that's just being real. That's just being honest, right? So pricing is another thing that you have to think about when it comes to launching your book. And then the last thing that you want to do is create a launch plan, right? So you might want to have a book signing. You might want to do a book tour. An example of a book tour, say I was writing a book on how to go to college for free, right? How to get your tuition paid for. Maybe I would do a book tour and go to different colleges around my state, right? So that would be a great way to get your name out there and to sell your book. You could do a giveaway. You could do blog tours, which is like a digital way to get on a lot of different people's websites to bring in traffic to your own blog. And then the other thing that's really important is creating a launch team. And this is super important, especially if you want to rank really high on Amazon. Creating a launch team is important because this is a group of people, usually around like 10 to 20 people, who you can send either advanced reader copies or separate chapters from your book. You can send that to them and then ask them to leave reviews on the day that you actually publish your book, on the day that your book actually goes live. And that will boost your Amazon rating, and it will also push the book. Amazon will push your book when they see you getting a lot of reviews. They'll push it to other people, and that will boost up your visibility on Amazon. And so the reason why a lot of people will tell you to do all of this stuff, like creating your website, doing the marketing and stuff like that, while you're actually writing. But I found that distracts a lot of people from the actual writing process, and it actually makes it harder for you to actually complete your book. And so I always say, spend time just writing your book. So in the Author Bootcamp program, we spend 6 weeks strictly writing your book. So by the end of January, you'll have a completed manuscript. Now, if you want to launch your book in March, you can spend all of February marketing. You can spend all of February creating a launch plan. You can spend all of February sending out advanced copies and getting those reviews, right? And so it's easier to focus on one thing at a time and put all your information into it, right? Because you're going to get burnt out if you're trying to write your book and edit your book and market your book and build a launch team and create a website all at the same time. Whereas if you strictly focus on writing, then you strictly focus on marketing, and then you focus on launching, it's a smoother process and it's easier, and it's less likely that you'll get burnt out that way. Right? So those are the 10 steps. I'm going to go over them one more time. So the first step is brainstorming, and that's deciding what you're going to actually talk about, what is going to be the overarching topic or theme for your book. The second is planning, so creating an outline, a writing schedule, and a writing plan. Third is research. What data, statistics, etc. do you need to include in your book? Number 4 is actually writing the book. Number 5 is editing. Step number 6 is rewriting the book. Step number 7 is formatting the interior. Step number 8 is designing the exterior. Step number 9 is uploading it onto whatever publishing platform you're going to use. And then step number 10 is actually launching your book, deciding on what you're going to price it and going on a tour or anything that you want to do to market your book. So those are the 10 steps to how to write and publish your book. I also created a checklist for you. So if you want to go ahead and download that checklist, you can just click the link in my bio and you can grab that checklist and it includes all 10 steps on there. And then also, if you are interested in learning how to write your book in 6 weeks, if you have a story that you want to share, if you've been wanting to write a book, but you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do, the Author Bootcamp does open next week on Black Friday. If you join the wait list, you will get a special discount. So make sure you click the link in my bio to join the wait list. And if you sign up for the program, you will have a completed manuscript by January of 2020. So you can go into the new year with your book. So that is all that I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you guys have a great night and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.